So I have been basically thinking about the Tower of Babel since they started with this wanting to get rid of TikTok. Okay, Mitt Romney's coming out saying that we have a huge TikTok problem and we need to get rid of it. And since then, I have been thinking about this um, because what TikTok gave us that we hadn't actually gotten in any of these other apps is to literally be able to see with our eyes, not just read, not just see pictures, but live action, real time of what communities are like around the world and hear from these people. And they heard from us, and it gave us this unity. I'll never forget the unity I felt with the Iranian women when they spoke, okay? And they were being persecuted for taking their hijabs off, okay? And I'll be honest, I did. I felt this like weird sense of unity with them, and I felt like I never felt as connected to anybody's leadership as I did with them saying how they felt. And yes, that is real. So, like I said, I have been actually thinking about the Tower of Babel since that was all coming out. Now, it says here, now the whole world has one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there, which is right around Baghdad, a little bit, I guess, west to Baghdad, you know, in that region down there. And for probably a lot of reasons, they did settle there. And it looks as like, if you go into it, they say, they said to each other, come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly, use bricks instead of stone, and tar for mortar. Then they said, come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heaven, so we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered all over the face of the earth, of the whole earth. Okay, face of the whole earth. Okay. So basically, I think that means, okay, and we look at this and logically, I mean, they were living probably all over, wandering from place to place in small groups, okay? Because humans throughout history have not been known to be isolates, okay? They're communities. They like to be around other people, okay? So they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and we'll build a city. And like they said, they built it of bricks. They used physical bricks. And they talked about a tower that reaches the heavens, okay? And so maybe they did want to reach into the sky. You know, a lot of things at that time, they were looking to the sky. They were, you know. And then we go on and it does say, but the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, there's nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Meaning, together as one group of people on earth, human beings, okay? If we all work together, unity, there's nothing in the world that we can't accomplish, okay? And then it comes and say, come, let's go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. When it says, let us come down, or let us go down, not come, but go down, I'm thinking that it's multiple, it's not one deity. It would be multiple deities. And possibility of destroying their civilization. Dividing up the people. Making them hate each other. You know? I know it's like we'll go down and confuse the language. Well, they're confusing us. If you look at our politicians today, and we take this into now the actual tower, I'm not sure what they were building. Maybe they were just building a civilization and a community. Maybe it seemed more utopia than outside towers wanted it to be. Or maybe it could have just been destroyed by natural, and they wanted a reason for it. You know, that's also partly true, probably. But I imagine there were other people, because these were not the only people on Earth, even though they're thinking and saying they were. I'm pretty sure in history tells us, archaeology history tells us that they probably weren't the same people. And then it goes and it says, so the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why they called it was called Babel. And go on to say Babylon, but yes. So if we, you know, and then it goes on, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So, in modern day, if we look at modern day stuff, we were building a community, okay? And then they have stopped our communications. Like, there's a lot of videos I used to see of people in other countries that I no longer see on there. I mean, yeah, I can go on, Redbook, and I can look at a bunch of other stuff, but I'm still not getting a whole picture over there either, because not everybody's on there. TikTok, literally everybody was on there. We had people in Gaza on there for who I had never actually seen, except for some pictures that I seen, very few pictures that I had seen of that, where they were protesting and the Israelis were killing them, including children, because they were protesting. That's a whole other fucking subject, but anyways, yeah. So this is, I'm just thinking that in modern day world, the Tower of Babel is very important, because here we have this, and we are trying to stay connected, and we're being pulled in different directions by political ideology, which is ridiculous to me. I mean, and maybe that's the reason I feel that way, is because I have always been more liberal since I can remember, and I have always, it's probably because I grew up middle class, and the people around me were more Republicans and more conservative. So I'd always been around those people, And in my teenage years, I almost exclusively, all of my boyfriends of the past were conservatives. Almost exclusively, I think a handful, if even that many, less than a handful of guys I dated were liberal in any way. And so I've always had like communications with everybody, and even my husband today is conservative. And we're at about 19 and a half years. So we've been together for a longer than some of people on these apps have been alive. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's a long time that we have been able to get along and find common ground. And I believe everybody can get along and find common ground. And that is really where we need to be in life. And if we allow these outside powers, which in the Tower of Babel they called God, okay? These outside, we're going to call them the Epstein class in today's world, okay? I don't view them as any kind of God, but they view themselves as gods. And we can't forget, history is written by the winners. And obviously, in the story of Babylon, they were able to keep the people divided. And they grabbed them up and separated them. They said we, so there was multiple deities. They probably grabbed up their group of people and took them off in different directions. You know, and the communities that they were building, brick by brick, we are building in the same sense. And they could just take us out, you know? Or we could have a natural disaster take out our internet, okay? Like solar flares. Or it could be combined with solar flares and war. I don't know if all of us have seen the same documentaries, but I have watched some documentaries where they have shown how they have satellites with literal arms on the satellite dishes. You know, like things up there, and they're moving around in the sky, and they could be taking out people's communications. You know, they could grab and throw the satellite out, you know, which is very, I mean, look at what we're doing to the people on Earth. What makes anybody think that we would do any different out in space? Okay, so we have to always, and I always find myself grounded when I think of how we behave today and the things that are going on today. And I always revert back to today's society and what I know. And I use that with the knowledge of history to give me probably a more accurate description of what things were like back in the day. Or at least I think it is. Others can believe whatever they want, but I firmly believe that gives me, you know, and I do not think humans have changed, okay? Our thought processes are the same, our desires are the same, our wants are the same, and our ability and our ability to go after what we are willing to do to achieve these things have not changed, okay? We are just as barbaric as we were back then. You know, just because we dress up in suit and ties does not make us more civilized. We are a pretty barbaric society and pretty destructive if we look at history and what humans have actually done with other creatures. Okay, we literally are fighting over whether or not pigs should have enough room to turn around in a cage, or they should be just in a cage too small to even move and turn around. I mean, I understand that we're eating these things, but I don't think that that means that we have to treat them inhumane. Okay, everybody has a sense of conscience. Everything on earth, I mean, well, every living thing on earth has a form of conscience, even plants, as they feel some kind of pain, I guess. I mean, people have hooked up little things to them to hear them, and they have their own language and stuff. These are very true things. I mean, it's kind of strange, and to it would sound more fictional to write it out than reality, but it is reality. So that's what I think about when I think of how everybody is like trying to pull us apart and divide us and make us hate each other. Okay? I don't even hate the people in Israel, and I have said this. I know the children behave in such horrible, horrible manners, and because they were raised like that, and I still think there's hope for them. At least the children, there's hope for. Some of the adults, there may not be hope for them. But the children, there are definitely hope for. And definitely should, not be harmed. Okay? And stuff. I do not believe in collective punishment like that. And I always believe that children have a special place. Okay? That's why when the Israelis talk about targeting children and acting like it's no big deal to kill 50,000 plus children, it breaks me. It breaks me. It really does. Because, I don't know, there's a special innocence about children that should never be broken. And should never, ever be it just shouldn't. Okay? These are kids. There's always hope of rehabilitation for children, even children that others might call psychopaths. I find that these children deserve more and deserve the chance at rehabilitation, no matter what. Okay? And that's why I do not believe in children being tried as adults, because they're not adults, they are children. Okay? And like I said, even if people think they're psychopaths, and they may be, but they are still children, and I would never want to harm the children. So, anyways, thinking about that makes me well up for whatever reason. I guess because I am human, But yeah, I do think about that, and I think that it could possibly happen. They could take us all out because we are on a brink of a certain type of unity, and they don't like unity. The powers that be, and these powers have always been in power, okay? They have. Now, granted, some have killed off members of these other ones of power, and vice versa. But there have always been this group, and they've always been the same, and I believe that if we trace them all back, they will share the same bloodline. That is not like you and I. Some of us may have this bloodline too, but we are under the radar on this, okay? obviously they've done DNA. We all come from the same people, but there's so much there's so much history that goes far beyond the Abrahamic religions. Okay, um, thousands, tens of thousands of years before this, even upwards to 100,000 plus years prior to this Abrahamic religion that people are still following today. But anyways, do you think the powers to be would destroy civilization as we know it just to divide the people? Because that's how they stay in power. Okay, I believe that's how they stay in power, but tell me what you think. Do you think that they would or not?